Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Art of Creation show. I am your host, Rebecca Boswell, and today we are joined by two amazing women. We are in season 9 of the Art of Creation show, and the last 2 seasons we took a little bit of a break with this format, doing a couple read-alongs, which were really fun. So if you want to go back and check those out, you are more than welcome to. But today, we are back into the interview format for this series on love, starting February and going into March. So today, our topic, we're going to be looking at love and the mind. And this awesome title for today's episode is what is it? Dear Mind. Dear Mind, we need to talk, and loving beyond thoughts. And who better to help us talk about this and get some practical ideas of how we can have more ease in the world with our thoughts, and also experiencing more of love, whatever that is, as we look into seeing more of what's available there. So Trina Rice, she is with us today, as well as Kim Lucien. Trina and Kim, they work together, and they have this amazing program that they're offering as part of the Misfit squad, and they're going to talk to us about that. Trina has been working as an occupational therapist, a master facilitator and coach for 25 years. She is a best-selling author and has a lot of awesome stuff to share with us today. She also was a guest previously on the Art of Creation show, so the link will be in the show notes for that episode, Going Beyond Labels. That was a really cool chat that we had. And then, of course, Kim Lucien. She's also been working as a coach and also as a teacher, working with children and horses, and those with sensitivities along the autism spectrum for over 25 years. So Trina, Kim, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to get started and to have this conversation with you.
Yay.
Yay, it's good to be here.
Let's see if we can, usually we do skip around, but I think this will show everyone at the same time. So let's try that. Great. So before we dive into our topic, I was wondering if you guys could share with us a little bit about the Misfit squad and the energetic signature formula. What is that, and how can we use that to tap more into what's possible with the topic of love?
Do you want to go, Trina?
Sure. Well, so Kim and I have created what we call the energetic signature formula and the Misfit Squad podcast. But what we're doing is where we help the different ones, those who are highly energetically aware, those are who are highly sensitive, they may be on the spectrum, like the different ones, the misfits. So they can, who are tired of feeling stressed and anxious or misunderstood. So we can help them identify their strengths and empower them to use them for them, and so they can have a life of a lot more ease and freedom. Yeah.
Now, who is a misfit? How do you know if you're a misfit? Is this someone's told you you're a misfit, or how do we know who this is for?
Basically, if you've always felt like you didn't quite fit in, or you just feel different, or people don't get you, those are the big ones. Those are really the big ones. There's probably a list of like 50 things that we could list off, but those are the big ones.
So it could even be somebody that looks like they have all their stuff together and like highly functioning, but
exactly, so
they still feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, kind of a lot of what we ended up focusing things on came off of me and what I have experienced, discovering very late that I am in fact on the spectrum, and more on the spectrum than I think, as Trina likes to tell me sometimes. But from the outside world's perspective, I've had an incredibly successful life. I've started and ended multiple businesses, and I've done all these things that you're not supposed to be able to do if you have a hard time being in the world.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So it's about helping those people, and it's also about helping the people, especially as the world changes and the millennials are really like the majority of the workforce, but the bosses are still the old people, right? So it's also about helping the caregivers and the parents and the business leaders tools to support and understand and allow the workforce that they have to manage be successful.
To create that, to help them create that connection, because a lot of times there's that social gap where if you are you can be so aware of so many things, but like to be able to have that connection with somebody that doesn't always exist and to know how to communicate. So that's some of the things that we're doing basically. And we're just using, I don't have the definition of a misfit pulled up right now. Do you remember what it is, Kim?
No.
But it actually is really empowering. It's not saying, we're not using it as a label.
Oh, actually, sorry, Trina, but the funny story is my mom, after seeing like a bunch of the posts, she sent me this like deeply concerned text about how I'm just not a misfit and all this like lovely stuff that she said about me. And actually, and so which was funny because, you know, she automatically interpreted it as this like bad thing. And I text her back and I can't remember exactly. Essentially what I was like, being a misfit is not a bad thing. It's about embracing how you're different and using that, turning your wrongness into a strongness, right? To embrace what's different about you, because that's what's unique and special in what you offer the world.
Yes.
Right. And the misfit squad and the idea that you don't fit in and all of the labels associated with being a misfit or all of that is designed to spark a conversation.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and what I really love about this too is, you know, this whole idea of love in the mind, right? And this is such a beautiful example of that as well, where we have this opportunity, this invitation to actually embrace more of who we are and to find more of that love or that whatever that energy is of wholeness, of, you know, allowance, acceptance, honoring, all those things. And it's really how we filter it through the mind that would either make it a wrongness or a strongness. Like, what are we actually willing to be? And what is our mind deciding or choosing that either allows us to go and experience more space, more expansion, more ease with the possibility, or to put it into a definition, a box, a smaller space, a judgment. So, so this idea of like going beyond, right? Can we dive into that a little bit? Because this is a kind of a beautiful segue. Because what you're offering people really, I perceive, is access to a greater possibility. And I would use towards love, right? And we could talk about like, what is that even just for the sake of this conversation? From a place where, you know, if you feel like a misfit from some of the other definitions that we've heard, like maybe the definition that your mom is familiar with, there's really no invitation to love. In fact, you know, you may talk to people who have this note, like they're taking the word misfit, processing it through their mind, through their past experiences, through judgments, and it's actually something that squeezes out and negates love or the capacity for self-love. And then of course we know the more capacity we have here, the more we have out in the rest of the world. So how does that work, and how do you guys, when you're working with people that have such a strong mental structure that doesn't really allow them into this other space that you're inviting them to, how do you offer them a new possibility for going past that box of the mind?
I think first, love, just like misfit, but love, especially love, might be the one word in the English language that every single person has a different like definition and idea of what that is and what it looks like and what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
So we just need to acknowledge that. And then, you know, if we were talking with someone specifically about this topic, I think we would probably start with like, what does love mean to you?
Yeah.
You know, and because particularly people who are highly sensitive, they mostly function from spherical awareness, and they're aware of just like all this stuff, and they're constantly pulling and extrapolating information. And as you said, with the mind, their thoughts lock that all in place, right? Because they don't know how to process that. So we start by asking questions.
Yeah, I would say too, you know, a lot of times when you're so, well, like the whole thing about like with like love too is like, you know, some of us really love like that physical touch, and some people really love to get gifts. Some people love the acknowledgement. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Um, anyway, we all like get the language of love differently. And a lot of times when you are, we're talking about the mind and like these people who are really aware, when you're so aware, you really pick up on everybody else's stuff on like what love is. And then you try to filter that through your head, through your mind, but then you lose your own self in that and not even knowing what love is to you. And that's what I've seen a lot, like even with the kids I work with, of their way of responding to affection or that love and that gratitude. It comes off in a completely different way because they don't respond to like all the emotions and everything all the time, but because they're bombarded with so much. And then they try to almost counter back to somebody exactly what they're giving to them, and that may not be how they perceive love or have love or want love. So it really is like Kim was talking about, the spherical awareness. It's like the willingness to be aware of all of that, and at the same time, what does that mean to you, and how would you like to receive love, and how do you give love?
Right. And so that kind of comes back around to a little bit to like, what does it mean to you in terms of like acknowledging what you're aware of and who it belongs to. Right. Because we're aware of all this other stuff going on with other people, but that's actually it's not our point of view. It's not our feelings about things. And so to be able to get out of the mind, you also that's part of how you have to get clear about what it is for you and acknowledge that you're aware of all these other pieces and that one isn't yours, and you know, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So
we use these words as signposts, thinking that we're going to use one word to mean all these different things. So I use the word for love, and it means all these things that I've come to define it as based on my past experiences, based on my own thoughts and feelings and emotions and what I know about the world. And I'm expecting that one word, when I use it, is going to bring up all the same energies, all the same connotations, all the same meanings as it does for you. And yet what I'm hearing is it's actually completely different. And so when if I decide that to love you is to want to hold you a lot, or want to talk to you a lot, and you are actually someone who has a difficulty receiving touch, or you know, or feels threatened by too much talking, or you know, it feels like too much, then actually what I'm offering you in your world has nothing to do with love. Correct. Even though I think that's what I'm being and doing and giving. So that's all because of what I've brought from up here. So is there anything that we can tap into, whether, you know, because I would say that everyone has sensitivities in one way or another to one thing or another, or, you know, so we all, you know, we all have our the nerves that we wear on the outside, right? Some may be more visible, some may have more than others, but, you know, we all have them. So we never know exactly when we're going to be bumping up and into them. But when we are looking to connect with other people, we are looking to tap into something that maybe would be more universal among people. Is there anything there? And how can we tap into that beyond all this chatter of the mind and of the individual?
You want to use your awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So before you, like, I suppose in a situation where you're going to like react and you want to take like an action, pause and ask, like, what can this person receive? What would this person like to receive? What would work for this person's body? And sort of like pay attention to your awareness. And if you feel like that's too hard and you don't understand that yet, ask them.
Yeah.
Would you like me to hug you? Or would you like to just say hi? You know, like, really, what we, you know, all of the work that we do is about getting people in touch with their awareness. Mm-hmm. Being in touch with your awareness and using your awareness is what gets you out of your mind. If you're being aware, you're not thinking when you're awareing.
When you're
aware.
Right? I just made up a word, awaring.
Even when you're awaring, you're thinking, Kat?
That's right.
Quote unquote.
The train just, look at how funny, the train just went by and blocked my window, and now I look like a weird ghost. So anyways, use your awareness or ask.
Okay, cool. So let's look at that. So for people who are like, well, how do I do that? What are you saying? What is sort of like a 101 way for people to start noticing their awareness and to be more aware, right? Like how can we be more aware if we haven't really practiced that before?
You know, well,
practice.
It's a lot of practice. I know. The three of us are like, oh my gosh, how many years have I been like but where did it begin?
But really, one thing Kim said is like, ask the person, but like, as an example, like I work with a lot of kids who are nonverbal. So people are like, well, you can't ask them because they're not going to tell you. That's so not true. That's so not true. We're so caught up in that we have to have the words or something to get the awareness around a situation. And that's, working with them has taught me more about awareness than anything, because you actually have to push everything down. The one biggest thing I would say is like, just like being the space, and don't have the expectation of how your conversation is going to show up. And when you can show up and just be the space and ask, hey, what do you require today? Mm-hmm. You know, do you need a hug? Do you just want to sit? And when you ask those questions, you'll get a response. It may not be through words, but it might be through facial expressions. It could be through some kind of a gesture. And sometimes it's just through the energy of knowing, like, you know, when you've walked into a room and you feel like somebody's like, stand back, or you can feel like there's the tension of like there had just been a fight or something. That's how you start. You start to tap into, okay, you walk into a space. Is there joy in the room? Is there, like what we're talking about, love in the room? Or is there like anger? And being aware of that, then you start to, it's like listening to the little whispers that touch your skin.
Yeah, actually, sort of like one of the key things in the energetic signature formula, which is the process that we take people through, you know, that provides a bit of a roadmap, is that energy is your first language, right? We all actually know energy. We came out of our mother speaking energy, and that's how we communicated with our parents for 3 years, right? Some kids don't talk until they're 3. Right? So you do actually already know it. And awareness can show up in, you know, we all have those where like you hear a word, or like you have like an inkling, or like something just pops into your head. Those are all ways that awareness shows up. So the reason, so the reason that practice, you have to get used to like recognizing that that's what those things are, and giving them a moment to show up. So what I tell people who really don't like understand the words that Trina said, who are really like super new to like anything spiritual or anything energetic, is ask a question from a place of wonder. And even if you need to, I wonder what would work for this person right now. And then take a breath and just be quiet and see what pops, what, you know, and that's just a great way to start. And for a long time, it might seem like nothing's happening, but if you keep doing it, suddenly it's clear that it's working. I guess like it just starts to make more sense, right? So, and that's all part of the process of like, because the mind does get in the way, right? Our thoughts, we're like, just like you said, we're trying to like, because we're taught to like categorize and like put everything in a box, so then we never have to check in with that again. And what we're saying is that when we talk about using awareness, it's a little bit like constantly checking in, because everything is constantly changing. So nothing is like, that's only what, to use, come back to love, that's only what love is.
Yeah.
Love is a constantly changing construct.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's actually being present. I mean, everything that you're saying is being present, but not just present with the physical material world, but also present with all the other things that are on maybe a higher perception level that would otherwise get drowned out.
Yes.
And so really being, you're being present and then being aware of what's in that space of presence. And so when you get quiet, you said, take a big breath, you know, it's like settling it all. So like in meditation where you just kind of, you know, it's like the jar that you shake and you're waiting for all the sediment to settle. It's kind of like letting the thoughts, and of course the thoughts are going to still keep going, but just noticing where the thoughts are so you can actually access the space between the thoughts.
Right. Well, and I used to, I mean, I actually to be perfectly honest with you, meditation is not my favorite thing to do unless it's like an active, like moving meditation. But a lot of what I was taught about meditation in the beginning was kind of led me to the place where I thought thoughts were wrong. Yeah. Right. But for me, the way that my awareness shows up a lot of times looks like thoughts. So I spent a long time trying to meditate and have awareness, making my awareness wrong because I wasn't allowing that it might show up that way.
Yes.
And through practice, I can identify what's awareness and what's me having a point of view about something or a judgment, you know. And
that is interesting because there's so many different points of view out there, right? And different ways of accessing energy, and right, thoughts become things, and then at the same time you'll hear, you know, to let go of all your thoughts, or thoughts are false, and you know, so where does that leave us? Or like you said, I mean, it's the same with me. I mean, at some point my awareness gets filtered through my mind to give me words to tap in to oops. Okay, are we back? Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we never left.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. You know, at some point, I mean, that's just, you know, how it shows up for me. Then there are words and things just to get me, however that works, you know, on the same page. So it's not that the mind is necessarily a bad thing. Again, we're at this non-judgment place. So like the mind isn't a bad thing. It's just, again, being aware of where we're using the mind to create things that give us more possibility, more space, more access to what is in between, and where we're using it to close things down, lock things out, and judge ourselves. What would you say to that? Is there more to that?
No, I think that's a great description. It's not making your mind or your thoughts wrong, but it's actually being aware of those subtle whispers that occur. And one thing is like, think of, we were all babies at one time, and many of us are parents, some of us aren't. But even if you're not a parent, you're usually around, you have a brother or sister who's had a child or something. Think about a baby, and they're all expressing love. I mean, that gratitude for life is always there, that wonder, that curiosity. And they don't speak any words, but it's still there. And so how do you know, like, when your baby needs a diaper change, or how do you know when it needs to be fed, or how do you know it just wants to be swaddled and cuddled and loved?
So, Trina, I'm so sorry. Something happened. It cut off. Like it turned off.
Oh,
Like
and
we're on, but it turned off.
Oh, it stopped recording?
Oh, well.
no, it says recording.
Oh, it does.
Okay, well then we'll just keep going.
Energy
right.
and
Apologize.
technology. Woohoo!
Something looks very strange, so we'll keep going. And how does it get any better than that? So I'm sorry, I just don't see how to. Okay, well, we'll keep. Yes, I do see. All right, well, for you guys watching, see, this is what happens when you just allow things to show up the way they show up. So, so we've covered a lot of ground here, and was there anything else? Because one of the things that I was looking at when I was looking at the mind and love, and I think it also fits in this conversation that we started out with about misfit, and how you can look at and be with that from so many different angles. And right, it can be used as a weapon or as a tool. So the mind, and where we make ourselves lovable, unlovable, loved. What are some ways of, and I know we've been already talking around it, but I just want to put it again, one more thing that we can offer the viewers. When you're in those spaces, right? I mean, everyone's like, what's the problem with being lovable? Like, loved, I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. But when we have that, then we can also have the flip side of feeling unloved and unlovable. So what are again some ways we can, I know we have our tool of awareness and tapping into the presence, but how can we also flip it if we're to a place where we're not, able to bring it into how we're feeling about ourselves or being in the world.
How you meaning how?
Like making ourselves wrong, right? Like we want to feel loved, right? Like we already said, love is so many different things and is going to be different from one person to another. But we can use this thing of love against ourselves, where we make ourselves an outcast, or we make ourselves like separate from other people based on what we've decided about being loving or unloved or lovable or not.
Well, human nature, we really all just want to be loved. We all just want to be acknowledged. We want to be seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
Being heard is probably the biggest. And that's also hearing yourself. And it is challenging when you make everything about you wrong. But one of the things that you can start to do is, even as hard as it may be, is to start being grateful for the little things in life, and the things of like, even, hey, I woke up, my heart's beating today. I have blood flowing through my veins. Who can I contribute to today? And when you be that, and you have more of that energy, and where you're not making yourself wrong, that coin gets flipped. That point of view gets flipped, and then your tribe of people starts to show up. And you also have to be willing to be grateful for yourself, because if you don't have that gratitude, no matter how much somebody is acknowledging you and no matter how grateful someone is for you, you can't receive it. You'll just be pushing it away. So you really have to like push down everything, even when it's really hard, and find at least one thing that you're grateful for yourself.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's not what you're asking to have a sort of simple answer for is probably one of the hardest things for people to achieve, and many people spend their entire life working on that. So it's a process. But what Trina said is correct. The first step is to have, it's so contrite to say like you have to love yourself first, but that is kind of the truth. And we do that by having gratitude.
Yeah.
Every little bit, just the tiniest bit. And that's the other thing that, way back to circle back to the top of the conversation, when you offer people gratitude and no judgment, they will feel loved no matter what their definition of love is.
Yes. Yeah. It's
So,
that sense of deep belonging or profound belonging, and having a place where you are seen for not who you are necessarily on the outside, but it's like that notion of namaste, right? And the light,
Yes.
sees the light in you. So it goes beyond just my idea of you. My idea of myself sees the idea of you. It's not that. It's actually, something greater.
Yes.
yeah.
And you usually are, most people see you for the more beauty that you are, and for more than you think you are, so many times. But we ourselves have this like whatever block of like not being able to receive how amazing we are. And a lot of that comes, like what Kim was saying, from like no judgment. Yes, there are going to be people in your life. You may have people who actually judge the crap out of you, and they might be the people that are closest to you. So you're like, that's an impossibility that they actually see me. But that's not the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who actually don't have that judgment and actually see you for everything you are, because you're way more than the outside. You're way more than the shell that we're in. So we're really hard on ourselves, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Yes. And there's so much more. I mean, the more that I kind of am playing with the idea and the energies and the possibilities of love, it's like, wow, it's this idea of like, it's actually both a birthright and a legacy. And yet it's so slippery. But when we just kind of can be still, we can know it, even if we don't know how to say it. And through that knowing, we can also express it. And when we're present with the people in our lives, we have a sense of how we can express it without having to worry about projecting our outer selves onto someone else in a way that is actually a mismatch.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for this conversation. And before we close, I would love to, if you guys could just invite everyone to your podcast, to your websites, to your program, and let them know how they can find you and play with you more.
So we have, if you go to energeticsignatureformula.com and put in your email, we have a free PDF, 6 tips to beat anxiety and overwhelm.
Yes, cool.
Yeah. So, and you can use those tips for lots of things, but they work great for anxiety and overwhelm. And
Yes.
then, are you looking up the podcast? Looks like you're looking something up, Trina.
Mm-mm.
No. Oh, and then we're on the majority of the major podcast platforms, Misfit Squad podcast, or you can go to misfitsquad.podbean.com and get all the episodes and follow the podcast there.
Excellent.
It's the Misfit Squad podcast, and it's also on YouTube. So You can get the audio version, and if you want the video version,
which is usually ridiculous.
It is.
Even more fun.
Yeah.
It's
So
Misfit, man.
that's awesome. So we will put all those links in the show notes so that those will be easily clickable. So ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else that you would like to just offer the viewers before we close?
You know what? Just this month of February, it's Valentine's. Go out, love yourself, no matter what that means. And don't think about it. It's just kind of like what Rebecca was saying. Actually, just be. I mean, go hug a tree. I love you.
It'll love you back. That's the good thing. Awesome. Well, thank you, ladies, so much for being here. Thank you, all of you watching at home. Thanks for joining us. We are going to be exploring the topic of love from a bunch of different angles for the next few weeks. So please be sure to join us back here on Fridays. And of course, you can always find all the past episodes on our YouTube channel. So as always, it's been such a pleasure. And until next time, I wonder what we'll discover next. Goodbye, everybody.